Hi everyone. This series of videos is going to take you through page 5 in the brand new packet, which is posted in the learning plan, and it's called Compound Interest. It's worth noting that there were a couple of pages that were cut from the brand new packet, which is why it starts on page 5. In case you were curious, those are things that are just not essential during this learning from home thing, and it's not really something that you'll have to worry about. Next year, if you take math analysis, your math analysis teachers will teach you some of those lessons that were cut, so you don't have to worry about it too much. It's also worth noting that this lesson, this compound interest topic, is very similarly related to something that you did in the previous packet. So if you don't have your previous packet, you might want to take a quick look at it because there are a couple of pages that are probably worth reviewing a little bit. Specifically, if you go back to the packet from chapter 8, which was the previous packet that we were working on, the page 10 lesson about percent multipliers. This is a really good one to make sure that you review because we're going to be dealing with percent multipliers again in this new lesson. So if you haven't yet, maybe find that older packet, that chapter 8 packet, flip to page 10 and kind of similarly page 11 to make sure that you understand how percentages work with multipliers, because that's a necessary skill in order to be successful on this compound interest lesson. It's worth noting also that compound interest is one of the more real things that we end up learning in our class. I know it's sometimes hard to believe that any of the stuff that we learn is going to be useful for our daily lives, but believe it or not, compound interest is one of the things that actually is really relevant for nearly everybody. Anybody who deals with money in particular is going to probably at some point in their life encounter this concept when they're at a bank or dealing with a car dealer or making a negotiation for a home loan or even just going to college and talking about savings plans and things like that. So compound interest is a great thing to understand as an up and coming adult because it'll really give you a sense of how and why money works the way it does, especially for those of us who don't want to get taken advantage of and want to be kind of smart with our money going forward. In question number 1 here, we're going to talk about some very basic situations. I should make the disclaimer that these are not necessarily the most realistic numbers. 12% interest is not really a common amount that you'll see in the real world, but we're going to use some sort of nice numbers at first just to get the idea set, and then we'll start to talk about what more realistic numbers would look like if you were really walking into a bank or dealing at a car dealership or something like that. Now, the 4 different investment options have to do with what we call compounding. Compounding is when you take an amount of interest and divide it into smaller pieces. And I should back up. Before I even talk about that, let me make sure we understand what it means to earn interest in general. When people want to invest money, and usually this is what happens when you're an adult and you have a little bit of money that you're going to put away for savings, banks often offer you interest. Interest is kind of like a reward for keeping your money in the bank with them. So when a bank offers you an interest rate, what they're actually doing is saying, hey, if you put $1,000 into our account, we'll add some extra money in there every year just as a thank you for keeping your money with us. So interest is basically free money. It means that as your account sits and ages, while you don't touch that money at all, it keeps increasing in value. So if you invest $1,000 initially, that means that over the next few years or however long you keep your money in there, that $1,000 is going to grow. So interest is a great thing because it's basically free money. These different options are different ways that the bank can add that free money into your account. Option number 1 is basically saying they'll just give you 12% once a year. So essentially, we're saying that if you use option 1 and if you invest, say on New Year's Day, $1,000, then that means when you check your account balance on the following New Year's Day, 1 year later, you'll see 12% more money in the account. And the bank will kick you that money once at New Year's Day. Option number 2 is still saying you'll earn 12%, but they'll divide it up into 2 smaller payments. That word twice, that means 2 smaller payments. So while option number 1 is just going to kick you that thank you money once, they'll kick you that money on New Year's Day as like a thank you for keeping your money in all year. Option number 2 is like, no. We'll give you 2 smaller thank you payments, 2 smaller interest payments. So if you invested your $1,000 on New Year's Day, you could probably check sometime in June, and then you'll see a little bit of an increase. And if you check again the following New Year's Day, you'll see the rest of the increase. So twice just means you're getting 2 smaller increases instead of 1 big increase in option 1. Option 3 is similar. Option 3 is saying we'll compound or kick you your money quarterly. Quarterly is 4 times per year. So if you check, say in March, you'll see a small increase. If you check again 4 months later, or 3 months later, because quarterly is every 3 months. If you check again 3 months later in June, you'll see another small increase. You check again in like September, you'll see another small increase. And you'll check one last time in December, and you'll see your 4th small increase. So again, this is kind of like saying we'll break up your interest payment into 4 smaller pieces. Option 4, the last one, is monthly, which is 12 times a year. Figuring, of course, there are 12 months in a year. So this is like saying, okay, we're gonna have 12 small little increases over the course of the year instead of 1 big one, or instead of 2 semi-big ones. So once you understand what compounding means, think of it as how many times a year you're gonna get that boost in your account balance. Once a year, twice a year, 4 times a year, or 12 times a year. That's the general idea with compounding. So make sure that you understand what compounding means, and in the next video we'll start to work through some of these questions where we'll deal with compounding in action.